What's good, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's going on with the overall market and talk about the PPI report that just came out and why it's not looking that great for the markets. But before I do anything like this, let me just mention a couple of things. I'm firstly not a financial planner, so make sure you take none of this as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Webull link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Webull, the link down below, and deposit any amount of money into the account, you are guaranteed up to 12 free stocks. The offer ends very soon. It ends in just about 4 days, so check it out before they run out. With that out of the way, let's get on with the video. SPY is down 0.23% for the day. Tesla's down 1.24%. Apple's down 0.1%, all in the pre-market so far. And the market's trying to sink a little bit because the PPI report was not very good. Why do I say that? Because when you look at month over month, it was 0.3%. The consensus was 0.2%, so a little bit hotter than expected. Core PPI month over month was 0.3%, also a little bit hotter than expected. Year over year, core was 2.4%, which is a little bit hotter than what the forecast and consensuses are. And then year over year, it was 0.8%, which is hotter than expected too. So this was a little bit hotter than expected by a tiny bit, but still a little bit hot. And that is some negative news for the markets. That's why the market started dropping even harder during the pre-market. But now the question is, how will the market move going forward? Just remember, there's going to be a big move coming at about 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern time, or 30 minutes after the market opens, because we have the Michigan Consumer Sentiment Report, which the market's going to react to. I can't really predict how this is going to move the market. It really depends on what the data tells us. We have the Inflationary Expectations Report coming out for like the short term, also for the 5-year expectations, the Michigan Current Conditions Report, and then the Consumer Sentiment Report all coming out. This is going to give us a good idea of how consumers are feeling, how inflationary expectations are looking, and we will have to wait and see how it looks. Now, this is going to be very important, so make sure you're ready for this. Expect a big move 30 minutes after the market opens. Now, looking at some headlines, the headlines are coming out and talking about how wholesale prices rose 0.3% in July. And this is very important because PPI tends to be a leading indicator of CPI. And if the wholesales are now paying more for certain prices, this could be a signal that we might see another increase in inflation, not just for July, but also for like the month of August, right? In August, we might see prices go up a little bit more, especially as energy is starting to go up. So this is a little bit concerning for the Fed and investors. This could lead to more negative potential for the markets, but it really depends on if we could break certain supports or not. And to add on to this, when it comes to how the market was moving, right, the market's slowing down. If you look at the Nasdaq Composite, the S&P 500, even the Dow Jones, they're actually not doing that great, especially the Dow, which is actually only up like 0.3% compared to what it was like last week or like a couple of weeks ago. Market is reacting to the fact that CPI, it did cool off a bit, but PPI is a little bit hot. And that's basically all I'm seeing in the news for now. Now let's talk about how the market is looking. Looking at SPY, there's another thing you could do if you don't want to look at like specific like supply and demand zones, but you could just zoom out on the 4-hour time frame on SPY now and just look at our support and resistance. So the 50 EMA is acting as our resistance, and then we have our support at the 200, and we're barely touching the 200 right now. We're barely holding it, so we have to be careful here. Do we get a bounce to the upside? I'm going to be watching for that. Do we get a bounce to try to make our way back up to like 447.5 or at least 446 plus, or do we end up rejecting below 444? If we break below 444 on SPY, if that happens hypothetically, that's going to be our critical support for today. If that breaks, we're going to be watching this thing come down to about 442, if not all the way down to the daily 50 EMA around 441.2. So somewhere between there, I'm going to be expecting 441 to 442 if we break below 444. It is looking kind of weak right now, but we have to wait for confirmation just to be safe. Now, there's also the possibility of a bounce. If it does try to bounce off this level, you're going to be watching it testing resistance levels. And I will break these down in just a minute, but let's first talk about this right here. So we have this demand zone. These demand zones could always be extended. So there's no guarantee that we're truly breaking just yet until we see how we open. But just as a reminder, right, we have the market having a tendency of really respecting these levels. We're going to be watching, could the buyers step in here and try to push the market back up above 446? If that's the case, then 447.5 could be retested. If that breaks, then you're going to be watching 448 flat. 448 has some more resistance. If we manage to break this area, then it has the potential to push up to about like 450 or so, right? But just to be clear, we have to see buyers step in order for us to get back above 446, and we have to try to see the buyers step in like they did previously. Now, if the bearish case plays out and we end up breaking below support, we're going to be watching this trend line, which is basically very close to like 444. That's basically where it's at. If that breaks, the market's going to sink lower. So you have to be prepared for this, be prepared for some volatility and be very, very careful. The market is not looking that strong right now. So the odds do favor it potentially coming down, but we have to wait and see if it breaks. I just want to make that as clear as possible. All right, guys, so that's what I'm seeing for SPY. When it comes to more specific levels, before I start breaking down Tesla and the others, here are some levels to watch for on SPY. 444 is critical support. If that breaks, watch 443.76. If that fails us, we're going to likely come all the way down to 442. And then if this thing tries to bounce, watch 445.22. The 445 is basically as resistance. 446.5 is going to come next, which is where our 200 EMA is on the 5-minute time frame. Then we have 447.5, the 448s, and then above that we have 449.5 to 450. So here's some levels to watch for. Right now, SPY is trying to hold 444. We will see if this holds. It's looking kind of weak in the pre-market, but we'll have to see if the bounce comes or not, depending on which way the buyers step in. We are looking kind of weak though, but I just want to make that as clear as possible. Tesla's barely holding 242 right now. This is very important because of the fact that we do have a tendency of seeing buyers step in right here for Tesla. Uh, Even though the data was not that great, Tesla's trying to be bought up around 242. It has to hold this or else things could get kind of bad, because if Tesla comes down and breaks below this, 240 is going to be critical support. It has to hold 240. If that fails for Tesla, it's going to come all the way down to fill this gap in the 230s. We're going to see Tesla crash to the 230s. I'm not going to use the word crash, sorry guys. We're going to see Tesla drop to the 230s. If we end up seeing this break below 240 and we have this gap down here around 235, that's likely going to get filled if Tesla breaks below 240. So far, it's barely holding 242. So we'll see if that holds or not. And if Tesla hypothetically somehow manages to get a bounce, you're going to be watching how it reacts to 242.7. If it breaks that, there's 243. There's some resistance there this morning. Then we have 244.6, 245s, 247.5, then 250. Those are resistance levels. What do I think Tesla's doing? It's looking weak right now, to be honest with you. The odds do favor it coming down, but just to be safe, let's see if it can try to hold 242 first. If that fails us, then 240. Let's see if Tesla could hold this or not. It needs to see buyers step in. If they fail to come in, Tesla's going to be sinking. So make sure you're prepared for that. Make sure you're ready just to be safe. Now, I'm going to try to quickly go over the rest. Looking at Aapl, if 177 breaks us, we have the potential to come all the way down to 175. If we bounce, watch 178 plus. If that breaks, 180 becomes a possibility. If we could get a clean break above this, actually, it's 179 and then 180 because we actually have resistance on almost every dollar, which is pretty funny for Aapl. So we're going to be watching, can we hold 177? If it breaks, this thing's going to sink all the way down to potentially 175, and that's going to help the market drop. For the triple Q, we're currently around 365. If 365 fails us, we're going to see the triple Q tank all the way down to 363, in my opinion. If it bounces off here, we have the potential to retest 367.5, 368 flat, and then potentially around 369, 370, and then 372 above these resistance levels. What looks more likely? Well, it looks like it's trying to hold this level. I think there are going to be some buyers trying to defend it, but we'll see if 365 holds or not. If it breaks, it could sink a lot lower. It's looking like buyers are trying to defend this area, but overall the trend is not that strong on the bigger time frames, like the 4-hour, for example, not looking that great. It's continuing to downtrend, so we're going to be watching to see if we can get some kind of bounce just yet. Don't assume it's going to bounce until it actually happens, so we'll have to wait and see. But it looks like it's going to be testing 365. If that fails us, then it is what it is. For NVIDIA, might see the same thing. It's looking relatively weak. It's currently at 416. It might get a back test of about like 420 before it drops a little lower. And then we're going to be watching these previous supported levels, which are going to be our guide for today on NVIDIA. So you're going to be watching how does it react to 410. I think 410 is going to be one level that's worth mentioning. And then we also have our 50 EMA, which is holding NVIDIA up right now on the daily chart. If that fails us, NVIDIA could sink a lot lower, unfortunately. We could see it approach this 410 area. And if that fails us, we have this level right about here around this 407 support. And if that breaks, it's going to come down to 401, unfortunately. All right, so we'll have to wait and see if the 50 holds. buyers are going to likely try to step in and try to defend it. This is going to be critical support for NVIDIA. If it bounces, you're going to be watching it hold above 420. If that breaks, then we're going to be watching the next resistance at 425. Then we have 431, 433, and then 436 from what I remember. So watch these levels carefully. Market is looking kind of weak to start us off. One thing that does concern me a bit would be the VIX, because the last time I checked it, on the 30 minutes time frame, the VIX has this. I remember seeing an inverse head and shoulders somewhere here. I think it's right here. See, this is looking like an inverse head and shoulders, right? This could be like a head, a left shoulder could be forming here, and then we could be forming a right shoulder. So maybe it drops a little bit. Maybe the market like kind of gets a tiny bounce in the morning, and then this thing starts, pushing up. If that's the case on the VIX, it would be because the market's about to sink. So that could be the case for the markets. It's looking like the odds are favoring downside a bit more. The dollar's also pumping a bit. So we're going to be watching these levels just to be safe. Looking at Meta, it's not looking that great. It's currently at 303. If it tries to get a backtest of 305, we're going to be watching to see if it could break 305 to push up to about 310 or not. Unfortunately, technicals are looking weaker because of the PPI report. So if it continues to break down, if it fails to hold support at 300 and then 297, expected to crash to about 290. It's going to be a big drop for Meta, unfortunately, and the market's once again looking weaker. So that's what I'm seeing in the charts right now. We're going to be watching, can support hold? SPY just hit 444.14. Can we hold 444? Let's find out during the open hours, because everything could change depending on how the trends look. We're looking weak so far, so just be prepared and do what you have to do, guys. Please stay safe. Watch your levels and don't always just be trying to predict exactly what the market will do. Instead, let the chart tell you what's about to happen and make your moves based off that, and try to be as unbiased as possible in making those moves. Be prepared to play both sides, do what you have to do, guys. So enjoy your day, enjoy your Friday. Hopefully you guys have fun today trying to trade it and have an absolutely spectacular day. I hope you guys kill it. The market to the moon is long term is very bright, and peace out.